What up? Welcome back. It is Bones, and in this one, let's go ahead and do another versus video. Now, over time, I have done a couple of these. I did DC Multiverse versus DC Essentials. I also did DC Multiverse versus DC Classics. And of course, a while back, I did do DC Multiverse versus Marvel Legends. Now, we did finish off 2024 and we're starting 2025. And in the spirit of that, I wanted to do this versus just maybe to like, I don't know, put past stuff behind us and move forward. Now, when I did the original DC versus Marvel Legends video, got, a mixed bag of responses. Had a lot of Legends, people in here running their mouth. And although I didn't do too much of a biased, versus video, I still had people saying that, McFarlane sucks, McFarlane will never be like Marvel Legends, and blah, 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 blah. So although I did title this video, versus and the final battle, it's really just to make a comparison and talk about some differences between the lines. Now, one of the big things that has really dawned on me over time is that I don't really consider Marvel Legends and DC Multiverse from McFarlane to really be competing lines. I mean, in a way, you can say that they are because they are both in all of the toy aisles, online and all of the stores, and they're both comic book products that are being sold throughout the world. Now, of course, Marvel Legends, it's hard to compare with them. They have years and years of running their line and putting out figures. And of course, McFarlane, well, I think this is going to be his fifth year. So, although he did have kind of a shaky start, he is starting to, pick up speed. And one thing for sure, as we have heard before, he does move a lot of product, no matter what people may say about DC Multiverse. For the time being, he is, doing the numbers and selling a lot of units. So that's, on his side. Marvel Legends, I mean, I think they went through a rough period because of that whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, where you can still go right now to, Ollie's and Ross and see tons of all of those movie figures that Marvel kind of concentrated on that, just did not sell. And the one bad thing about that was that it affected their whole toy company, their whole toy line. And, if we're honest, there's ups and downs in all toy lines and all toy companies. There's always going to be things that, us as collectors and as fans, we would do differently, or we have an image of what we expect. And for some reason, when they produce a toy, they end up, doing some, scratching head moments where you're like, what? Like, why would you choose to do that? And that is going to be something that affects both lines, hopefully for many years to come. Now, once again, as I said, I have moved away from thinking that these two lines are really competing. They're in the toy aisle, but of course, Marvel Legends is 6-inch and McFarlane's DC Multiverse is 7-inch. You're competing for the most part, two different lines. One is DC Comics, where, some people collect both, which I'm not going to say they don't, but there are a lot of people that only collect one comic company. So you have people that only collect Legends, you have people that only collect DC, and there's a couple of people that collect both, but that was kind of something that McFarlane took away from a lot of people when he decided to go 7-inch. And that takes me back to, I don't think McFarlane is even interested in making 6-inch Marvel figures. I feel like if he had his way, he would make 7-inch Marvel characters. Now, one thing I did want to do is make this, I was waiting to get two figures that were somewhat comparable. Now, I did buy this one, the the Angel from Marvel Legends, a couple of months back, maybe like I'd say 5 months back. And I recently bought this Earth 2 Robin, like 2 months ago. So although neither one of them is, the flagship of their respective toy lines, they are a standard representative of what each line is going for. So I don't want to hear in the end of this like, oh, you should have reviewed Spider Man. Spider Man has more articulation. They made a new body book. Marvel Legends used the Bucky Buck for years. They made like over 400 figures from it. And I think they still will make more figures from it. McFarlane has various bucks. He does lean on some sometimes, and then he breaks off of them and, goes to another buck, but he does have a great variety of different bodies and different reuse that he does, while Marvel Legends is known for just reusing the same bodies and just slapping paint and not really having any sculpted details, just like McFarlane is known for over sculpting the details and adding texture where, some comic fans wouldn't want it. There is variations in the line. So these are two very comparative figures, come with about the same things, and we'll break it down and take a look at each. But in the end, as I said, this isn't really to say one line is better than the other. It's just to show some of the differences in articulation and the difference in value that you get with these figures. But I'll try to go from head to toe and break it down, and we'll see how it washes out in the end. Now, on the Marvel Legends side, we do have the Angel from the X-Men. Now, I really wanted this figure, not necessarily because I'm an Angel fan, I'm more of an Archangel fan, but I wanted the wings. I thought they looked pretty cool and very articulate for a custom that I want to do, of course, a DC character custom. So this figure was really purchased only for the wings. I have no want or need for this figure in my collection. I'll just keep the body, maybe for fodder. You never know what you could use from different figures. And on the other side, we're going to have Robin of Earth 2, which is a digital wave figure. So aside from what he comes with, he also comes with a digital code that you could redeem if you're into digital physical media, which of course I am not, and I could care less. I just want my Earth 2 Robin figure. So that's, pretty much what we're starting with. They each have their own packaging. You have the standard McFarlane, you have the Marvel Legends. Marvel Legends having a little bit more artwork. They have a little bit of history on the character on the back of the packaging and some artwork on the side of the panel. Now, McFarlane doesn't have anything except for an image on the back, but he does have an open window on the side, so you could look at the figure through the side of the packaging, which gives you a more open space to look at the figure in the box. Now, I bought a couple of these Robins or two. They cost me around maybe 24 bucks with tax and all that. So it's a $24 figure. And this Angel I bought at Target, and it was around $34 at the time of purchase. So you already have a $10 difference in a smaller scaled Marvel Legends, and you look at them together, the multiverse figure is, way bigger, way bulkier, and you could see how the Marvel Legends really don't fit in my collection, as I basically have moved on from 6-inch, and for the most part, I'm a purely 7-inch collector. The other, lines I collect being, of course, Spawn from McFarlane, and a lot of NECA figures, which are also in 7-inch scale. Now you get them out of the box, and they both come in clam shells. McFarlane is seated in a clear half of a clam, and the Angel was in a two-piece slider packaging where you have the wings in their own backing, and the other part folds over on top of the wings. but pretty standard blisters for these figures. Now, the McFarlane one does come with a digital stand for your figures. Now, I've heard a lot of different opinions about the stands, like who wants them, who uses them. But I've also seen the other side of the spectrum where someone says, weird that McFarlane is the only one that gives you a stand with his figures, which are always appreciated. He also comes with a data file card, which this kind of replicates what Marvel Legends does on the back of the box and gives you a little history on the back of the character and his info from the DC Universe. So we always hold on to that. You also get the digital card with the code. Now, same thing, a lot of people are like, we don't want that. Who wants digital? Whatever. Like I said, I only want the figure. I could care less about this. This is basically to me like a comic book because I don't want comic books either. Don't really read comics anymore. So if I get a figure with a comic, the comic is, useless to me basically, except for, maybe thumb through it, from time to time. But somebody recently did ask, if I would sell them these. So there is some kind of value to these digital codes, albeit not, for everybody, but you also get that digital code. You get two of the Man Strangler hands. Yes, they have returned with this Robin, and they are two green colored alternate hands for your figure. And you also get a green batarang, which at least is some form of weapon for him. And finally, you get an alternate head sculpt. Now, I did buy three of these, so I will be opening up a second one to display this one with this head sculpt. And that's just one of my collecting habits. That's how I collect. When they come with a whole head sculpt, I pretty much usually try to buy another one so that I could display both heads. So McFarlane's the winner in this one because he's getting all of my money, while Marvel Legends I rarely ever buy. As I said before, I bought this one just for the wings. So we'll hold on to that head sculpt. Now, that's all you get with McFarlane. Let's see what you get with Marvel Legends. Now, you get, of course, the wings, but the Robin does come with a wired cloth cape. So we'll talk about that later on. But as far as accessories, he gets two open gesturing hands, which of course you could use for flying or for posing them in different display positions. And you also get an alternate head sculpt, which is why I put these two up against each other, because they relatively have the same accessories and apparatuses that go attached to their back. So pretty nice head sculpt. Legends are known for having pretty good head sculpts, albeit more of a comic book style, not really realistic in any way, more almost on a cartoon or animated version of your Marvel characters. So that's it. That's what you get with for your 24 and your $34. Let's go ahead and break down the differences in articulation and design. Now we'll start off at the head. As I said, they both have pretty nice head sculpts. Of course, McFarlane has gone leaps and bounds from where he started to where he is now, always pretty much putting out pretty nice head sculpts. Now, besides the looks, the main thing is the functionality, which we'll take a look at the articulation. Looks down very well. Looks up very high as well, which is cool. There's a lot of mods that you could do to these to make them get more range, but of course, these two figures are just out of the package. I haven't done anything yet. So for looking up and down, this is a pretty good range. Now you can tilt the head for some attitude, and you have right to left. So pretty standard for McFarlane. Now here's the thing is when you take a look at the angel figure, he looks down really far, which is great, for range. But if you look at it from the side, it does have a kind of weird look, like if his head is almost, falling off of his body. And when you look up, it's the same thing. He reaches all the way back, which is awesome for flying poses and displaying them in flying positions. But there are two negatives about this, and that is that The head, once again, looks kind of weird the way it sits on the neck. And you can see the ring joint on the neck, which is something you do not see in the McFarlane figures since they have that double barbell peg. They do not show any kind of hinge. While the Legends ones, some of them still use that old technology. Now, another thing you're not going to do with this angel figure is get any side to side. At the head, it's pretty much locked in because of the construction of that neck ring joint. You do get right to left, but you get no full tilt to whirl. Like if you take this Robin, you can pretty much swirl his head around any direction. While the Marvel Legends one is restricted because of the no tilt articulation at the head. So for me, that one's going to go to DC Multiverse. And like I said before, don't start saying that, oh, that's an old body. What I bought this figure last year. I bought this figure last year. They're both put out at relatively the same time. So this is what you're getting from Marvel Legends, and this is what you're getting from McFarlane. So shut up. Now taking a look at the shoulder construction, on the McFarlane, you do have that shoulder and bushing socket joint, which gives you a lot of movement and range. You can even go front to back and up and down. Now, recently, I did see that there are some Marvel Legends that have started to implement this technology into their figures. But of course, the Legends people say that, oh, what a fantastic new technology, new design. Like if it's something, out of this world. It's basically the same thing, I think, with a lot of imports and stuff like that. Use a lot of the design that McFarlane has been using since the beginning. You have a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, which for McFarlane look pretty clean, nice cut. Straighten them out and down to the hand. Now, here's where we're going to have another big difference, and that is that with McFarlane figures, 99% you get 4 ways of articulation at the wrist because of the added wrist joints. And although sometimes it can get a little iffy because of the way it looks aesthetically, the design, when it works, it definitely works and is great for posing with swords and weapons. Articulation that you just cannot get from Marvel Legends. Now, why is that? Let's look at the Marvel Legends. Basically, look at the shoulder. You have no movement at all. There's no movement, no up and down. Now, I do know that they make figures that have butterfly joints, but this is not one of them. You do have a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, which Legends, a lot of them are pinless. They've been moving more and more to pinless for a while now. So that is very aesthetic and clean. The elbow bends real nicely. I'm not going to say it doesn't. And when you straighten it out, you look at the wrist and you see that they only have 2 directions of bend, which is up and down. There's no lateral bend. You're not going to be able to hold a weapon, pointed at an angle or anything like that because the wrist does not allow it. Another thing that surprised me was that there's no glove cut. A lot of old Marvel Legends, I remember them having, some turn at the gloves, like a forearm cut. While the McFarlane one doesn't have it either, you get movement by moving it at the bicep or moving it at the wrist. This one's kind of tricky because I do give the points to McFarlane for the articulation and the range, but I give it to Legends for the cleaner look with the pinless technology. T-pose, pretty simple for both of them. Nothing out of the ordinary. They both get you into a T-pose really smoothly. Now let's go into the waist articulation. On the McFarlane, you have side to side. You got your full tilt-a-whirl at the waist, lower waist swivel, upper chest swivel. You could twist them, get them in some pretty dynamic poses. Uh, he has a front crunch, which, McFarlane's been battling with this since the beginning. But luckily, this guy has a very generous front crunch. Now, you can mod these to get even more front crunch, but I haven't done that to this one. This is how he came out of the packaging. And of course, when he leans back, it's a really clean aesthetic look. There's no gap, there's no breakup. I love the way McFarlane does that upper and lower torso ball joint. It gives you a lot of dexterity in the waist while keeping it very appealing to the eye. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Marvel Legends, which has that very ugly kitchen stove waist articulation. What do I mean by that? Well, he has no side to side to speak of. There's nothing. You want to get a full tilt-a-whirl like the McFarlane one, you're not going to get it because this guy doesn't have any range from side to side at the waist. Now you can't turn him at the waist, but he has that awful cut waist. And if you think this looks good, it does not look good. It looks really bad. I hate this. That's one of the things that moved me away from DC Universe Classics is that they all use that old waist cut. And when you turn a figure to the side like this and you have that ugly joint, I still can't understand why people think that that looks good. It looks rather horrendous. So, needless to say, there's not going to be no twist them to put them in dynamic poses. I mean, you can turn them for the most part and get them some basic poses, but you're not going to get the range and movement that you get out of the McFarlane. Now, let's look at the front crunch because that's, Marvel Legends' claim to fame is the front crunch. And I was rather surprised because he does have a nice front crunch, but I thought it would be way more than what it gave me. It was actually very little, even less than what the McFarlane one gave me. It just didn't go all the way down like a L. It just, kind of angled 45 degrees, and that was all it gave me. So wasn't very impressed by that front forward crunch from the Marvel Legends. Leaning them back, you can lean them back a good way, a good amount of range. But the one negative I would have to say is it does not look very clean. It looks very chopped up and ugly because of that hinge forward waist that they use. You have that big gap from the chest into the middle of the abdomen. Just doesn't look good, and I don't like it. Don't like it at all. Now, something I've been a big proponent from the beginning is McFarlane using the trunks, or how some people would insultingly put it, the diaper, because McFarlane did not invent this. This has been used by NECA for years. I think even Mafex uses it sometimes, which is a soft, crotch piece. But one thing it does do is it gives you a very clean comic book look. I remember looking at old images in the comics in the like who's the or what the or whatever. And this is what a comic book character should look like. You see no cutout lines in the crotch area. And when you put them together, you can see what I'm talking about. The Robin has a very clean comic book look at the trunks, while the Marvel Legends has those gaps in between the thighs and the crotch that I'm just not a big fan of. Aside from the fact, one of the things that just sticks out to me right away is those hideous thigh cuts. I mean, they just stand out like like nothing, and I don't understand why people think that looks good, having those big jagged cuts through your legs. And what's even worse is when you do manipulate them, they look pretty much like that waist cut, very ugly and unappealing. So a lot of this is leaning towards DC Multiverse, and people wonder why I prefer DC to Marvel Legend. Now let's take a look at the thighs. You have some pretty nice thigh swivel from the Robin. And this is why I say you don't need a thigh cut because you can move the boot from side to side without having a thigh cut. And that allows you to position the foot in different directions for posing and displaying. While, as I said before, Legends does have thigh swivel. You're not gonna deny that. But those thigh cuts are ugh, very disgusting. Do not like them. But they still use them, and Legends people like them, and that is their prerogative. Now the Robin could do the splits easily and cleanly. And this is allowed once again because the rubber of the trunks flexes, just like he could kick up very high and kick back far as well. The trunks move out of the way, and when you put them back, they go back to their original position. While if you look at the Angel, he can't get the full splits. I'm not sure why. I thought he would be able to. He doesn't kick up very high. It hits that hard crotch piece, and he cannot kick back at all for the same reason, because the leg articulation is confined with that hard crotch piece that, in all honesty, is pretty old and ugly. And I don't know why they still produce figures with that crotch cut. Now they both have double jointed knees. Straighten them out, right to left at the ankle, rocker and toe articulation from McFarlane. Marvel Legends, nice, clean, double jointed knees, straighten them out. You got that boot cut that Legends are pretty much known for, but I don't understand why you need your foot to turn like that, especially since the cut looks very ugly going from the calf into the top of the boot. When you turn it, it just looks unnatural and inhuman. No turn at the ankle, but you do have rocker. I guess that's why you need the thigh cut, is so you could turn the foot, because this one doesn't have any right to left at the ankle. And of course, no toe articulation. You can move them both up and down. Although I think the McFarlane one as well gets a lot more range up and down than the Legends one, but I'll leave that one up for grabs. Taking a look at them both from the back. Really nice figures going into the butt battle. Angel ain't, too far behind, but Robin might take that a little bit more softer, a little bit more suppleness than that hard butt on the Angel. Into the back, now we get to talk about the cape, the wired cape, and the wings. Now, wired capes from McFarlane are a recent new thing, but he's really been going hard on it, trying to add them to any figure he can. Now, for the most part, it does work and adds so much posability and dynamic action in figure photography or displays. You could flare it out, you could close it down for just standard poses, one direction. I mean, really a game changer when McFarlane started using these wired capes. Now, the wings are nothing to laugh at on the Angel from Marvel Legends. Beautifully sculpted, very large, 3 pinch points of articulation, which means you can flare them up, open them even wider, and you can even angle them out, towards the back, which is an added bonus. So I think that's where a lot of the budget in the Marvel Legends Angel came from, was in doing those wings, while McFarlane has started to add these wired capes as if they're going to be basically standard for all DC Multiverse. Now, there's slight little things, also little nitpicky things that I want to talk about. Is like at the top of Angel's boots, they painted the added addition, that should be sculpted in, or use the character that has that, point at the top of his boots. While the McFarlane one, it is fully sculpted in. The boots have that point on them, so you don't have to just paint the point like like the Marvel Legends is painted. And they also did it at the gloves. The gloves on the Angel have the point, just the added detail just painted on. Now, I'm not going to make it a big negative, and I'll tell you why. Because McFarlane does this as well. Sometimes there's a detail that he paints on, or he paints on the boots that have already original sculpt and just paints over it. Now, that's basically it. Of course, you have the advantage on both of alternating the heads, alternating the hands, getting some cool poses, doing figure photography. I know a lot of people were really in love with this Angel figure. A lot of people were looking for it and adding it to their collection. So don't try and say that this is a figure nobody wanted and now you're comparing it with DC Multiverse, because that is just simply not true. It is your standard Marvel Legend figure, as well as this Robin is your standard DC Multiverse figure. That is going to be something that takes me back to what I originally started saying, and that is that there's not really a winner in this. It's just two different lines, two different scales, two different communities of collectors. Some prefer Marvel Legends, they've probably been collecting them for over 20 years, and some have just latched on and been very happy with what McFarlane has been producing with the DC Multiverse. But each company is going to do things to make money. Each company might cut corners to make money, and each company, of course, is going to use company tactics to make you buy more figures, make you buy figures that you want with figures that you already have. They're also going to do a lot of reuse, reusing parts, reusing body molds, and it is something that we just have to adapt and live with. So in the end, as I said, this wasn't a true versus. This was more of just a comparison. But of course, I am going to keep collecting DC Multiverse. I'm going to keep collecting what I enjoy. And I can't say it enough. You enjoy what you do. I mean, this is nothing to talk bad about Legends collectors. I know they have awesome figures, they have some cool stuff that even I say, oh, if I was a Marvel collector, I would buy it. But it doesn't move me enough to actually want to purchase it. And that's where we're at. Spend your money the way you want. Choose the line that you prefer, and don't let anybody tell you anything different. So, anyways, guys, that's it. I'm going to try and get out my top 20 of DC Multiverse for 2024 tomorrow. So, as always, keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.